I want you to picture a scenario. It's, say, 4:55 p.m. on a Tuesday. You're walking past the factory exit. Or maybe you're in the lobby of a big corporate office. And what do you see?
A queue.
A physical queue. Yeah. Actual people standing there staring at the door, just waiting for the clock to tick over to 5:00 p.m. so they can swipe out.
The classic clock watcher phenomenon. It's painful to watch, really.
It is painful, but it's worse than that. It's a signal. The system has basically told these people, we value your physical presence for 8 hours. We don't really care what you did. They're optimizing for time served, not value.
That is such a perfect visual representation of a broken system. You're paying for attendance, so you get attendance. Simple as that.
And here's the paradox that drives me absolutely crazy, and this is really central to our deep dive today. Imagine that same company, their annual targets, missed, projects way over budget, service quality is dropping, but then bonus season rolls around.
Let me guess. The bonus pool is fully paid out.
100%. Everyone gets their full performance pay. The company is failing, but the employees are, on paper, succeeding. It makes no sense.
It's the successful failure. We see it all the time. A massive, massive disconnect.
It is a baffling corporate mystery. So today, we are going to solve it. We're digging into KPIs that drive behavior, looking at a framework from Evgeny Ledenev. He's a real heavyweight in this space over 20 years with firms like Accenture, KPMG, and he's a Shingo Institute affiliate.
And he's done these huge transformations, specifically in Eastern Europe and the Balkans, which is a really interesting context.
Exactly. So our mission today is to get beyond just paying for numbers. We're going to figure out how to build a KPI system based on the Shingo model that actually changes behavior.
Which, frankly, is the only way you actually fix the business itself.
Okay, so let's start with the diagnosis. Ledenev outlines a specific list of symptoms that show your KPI system is, rotting from the inside. We mentioned the queue at the door. What else is on that list?
Well, one of the most insightful ones he talks about is what he calls the luck factor.
The luck factor. What's that?
Right. So in a broken system, when the company actually makes a profit, it's not seen as the result of a deliberate strategy. It's treated as just, a pleasant surprise.
So it's like, hey, the global market price for our commodity went up. We made money. High five. But nobody actually did anything differently.
That's it exactly. There's no causal link between daily actions and the end result. If you ask a manager why they hit their target and they can't give you a specific operational reason, that's the luck factor. You're basically just gambling.
That is terrifying for a CEO. You're just a passenger.
It is. Another big symptom he points to is chronic project slippage. Projects are always late, always over budget, but, and this is the key, the metrics don't seem to hold anyone accountable.
Oh, I've seen this. The project status is red for 6 straight months, but the project manager still gets a great review.
Exactly. The red status is just noise. It never translates into a real consequence. And that brings us to the big one, the bonus disconnect we talked about.
This feels like the most damning symptom of all.
It is, because Ledenev points out that in many of these organizations, especially in the Balkans with that public sector legacy, the bonus isn't seen as a reward. It's seen as a deferred salary.
Right. I'm entitled to my 10% bonus just for working here. And if you try to take it away because the company failed, you have a riot on your hands.
Because the employees feel they did their jobs, they showed up, they stamped the papers, they stood in the queue. The fact that the company is losing money is, management's problem. The KPIs have totally failed to connect their reality to the company's survival.
There's a quote in the source material from Elihu Goldratt that just nails this perfectly. Tell me how you measure me, and I will tell you how I will behave.
It's so simple, but it explains everything.
Let's unpack that a little.
Well, if you measure people on being there from 9 to 5, they'll optimize for attendance. If you measure a procurement manager only on cost savings, they might buy cheap, low-quality materials that break your machines just to hit their number.
So if you see bad behavior in your company, laziness, corner cutting, it's not always that you have bad people.
Okay.
It might be that your measurements are practically begging them to act that way.
Precisely. And Ledenev suggests this logic flow. First, what result do we want? Then, what behaviors must change to get it? Third, what systems support those behaviors? And only then, fourth, do you ask, what metrics confirm it?
Most companies do that completely backward. They buy a dashboard and hope for magic.
Which brings us to the solution framework, the Shingo model.
Okay, so I know the OpEx people love Shingo, but for listeners who haven't spent a decade on a factory floor, can we get the simple version? Why this model for KPIs?
Because the Shingo model is powerful, it flips the usual pyramid upside down. Most companies focus on tools, the software, the charts. Shingo says tools are the least important part. You have to start with principles.
It's structured like a pyramid, though, right?
Yes. At the very top, you have enterprise alignment, knowing where you're going. Below that is continuous improvement. But the foundation, the thing holding it all up, is cultural enablers.
Cultural enablers. Okay, that sounds a little bit like HR fluff. What does it actually mean?
It means respect for every individual, and not just saying good morning. It means respecting them enough to involve them in solving problems. If your KPI system is just a stick to beat people with, you lack that foundation and the whole thing will collapse. You can't punish people into excellence.
So instead of saying, we need a dashboard to track errors so we know who to fire, it's, we need a culture where people feel safe to point out errors so we can fix the process.
That is the entire difference. Ledenev lays out 4 characteristics for an ideal KPI system.
Purpose.
Systems, behaviors, and results. And under purpose, you ask, why are we even measuring this? To create value or just to look good for the board?
And results is the data, but it has to be trusted, I assume.
Exactly. If the dashboard says green, but your customers are screaming red, your system is lying to you.
Okay, so that's the philosophy. But I promise a practical guide. Ledenev has a 7-step process for building this. Let's walk through it. Step 1 is building a KPI tree. This sounds like line of sight.
It is exactly that. You cannot have a disconnect. The tree connects the corporate level, what success means for the whole company, all the way down to the individual role level.
So how does that flow work in practice?
It's a logical cascade. Strategy defines the value stream goals, the value stream defines process goals, the process defines team goals, and the team goals define what each person actually controls.
So if the CEO wants profitability, the logistics director might focus on reduced transport costs.
Right, and the fleet manager translates that to route optimization, and the truck driver's KPI becomes something like idle time reduction.
So the driver isn't worried about the stock price, they're worried about not leaving the engine running.
But they understand why. They see how turning off the engine helps the company win. It stops that siloed thinking.
Step 2. Auditing the existing system. Ledenev calls this cleaning out a messy closet.
And it is almost always a very messy closet. He suggests auditing your current KPIs against 6 criteria. The big ones are clarity, calculation, and consistency.
Oh, consistency is huge.
Oh.
I've seen meetings get totally derailed because sales calculates revenue when a contract is signed, and finance calculates it when the cash is in the bank.
That is a classic symptom. They spend the whole meeting arguing about the math, not the business. Another key criterion he mentions is independent data sources.
Meaning
Meaning you can't have people grading their own homework. If the manager is the one who manually enters their own team's performance data into Excel, you have a big problem.
Well, that's a good rule for life.
Yeah.
Okay, step 3 is KPI passports. I have to admit, this sounds a little bureaucratic.
I know it sounds dry, but it's what stops those arguments you just mentioned. A KPI passport is just a one-pager that defines the metric. It lists the owner, the data source, the exact formula, no ambiguity.
So there's no wiggle room.
None. He also recommends using RSCI charts here. Responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. So everyone knows who owns the data and who owns the action.
All right, step 4, target values and benchmarking. This is where most managers just kind of stick a finger in the air and say, let's do 5% better than last year.
Which is lazy management. Ledenev argues for using factor analysis. You look at benchmarks. What are similar companies doing? What is the theoretical limit of our own equipment? You set a target based on potential, not just history.
Okay, now for the tricky part. Step 5, incentives. Ledenev calls this the danger zone. Why so risky?
Because incentives are like dynamite. Used right, they move mountains. Used wrong, they just blow up your foundation.
But isn't the whole point to pay for performance?
Yes, but the goal is not to just pay for numbers. If you do that, people will game the system. It's the Cobra effect.
Give me an example of gaming.
Okay, say you give a warehouse manager a huge bonus for reducing inventory costs. They might stop ordering critical spare parts to get their cost number down. Then a key machine breaks. The factory stops for 3 weeks. They hit their target, got the bonus, but they killed the business.
So how do you stop that?
You use guardrails? Ledenev suggests keeping the KPI set small, 3 to 7 indicators max, and you link them. So you get a bonus for reducing inventory, but only if machine availability stays above 98%.
Ah, clever. So if availability drops, the inventory bonus goes away.
Exactly. It prevents someone from optimizing their little piece of the pie while the rest of the pie burns.
Step 6 is automation, moving from spreadsheets to AI.
This is the modernization part, but there's a huge warning here.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Or as I like to say, garbage in, faster garbage out. You have to fix the system's steps 1 through 5 before you try to automate it. If you automate a mess, you just make a mess more efficiently.
And finally, step 7, the PDCA rhythm. Plando Check Act. This fixes the dashboard that nobody ever looks at problem.
A KPI system is dead without a rhythm. It's just wallpaper. Leidenev describes this cascade of meetings. You have shift-by-shift meetings on the front line, daily meetings to review yesterday, and weekly committees to look at trends.
It sounds like a lot of meetings.
It's actually shorter meetings, but more focused. The purpose isn't just to report numbers, it's bottom-up problem solving. A red light flashes on Tuesday, and by Wednesday morning, the team is already talking about how to fix it.
It turns the KPIs from a report card into a steering wheel.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but I'm a skeptic. Does this stuff actually work? There's a case study in the source about terminals and depots. Let's look at the before and after.
The before state was pretty grim. Lack of communication, no bottom-up feedback. Staff were totally disengaged. It was that queue at the door culture we started with.
And the after.
The results are pretty stunning, actually. The project shifted from just quality management to focusing on increasing engagement. And look at the turnover stats. In one terminal, staff turnover dropped from 4.22% a month down to 1.00%.
Wow. Let's just pause on that. 4% a month that's almost 50% of your workforce quitting every year. Dropping that to 1% saves an absolute fortune.
A fortune. And it wasn't just retention. Productivity went up, customer complaints dropped, but the most important result, according to the source, was qualitative. It was a shift from complete distrust to working together to solve problems.
That goes right back to the Shingo model, the cultural enablers. When people feel respected and they have that line of sight from their job to the strategy, they don't just stand in a queue. They actually start to care.
And that's the ultimate proof. The numbers got better because the behavior changed.
So let's wrap this with key takeaways. For someone listening who's realizing their KPI system might be a bit broken, what should they remember?
First, KPIs are about behavior. If a metric doesn't change a daily decision, it's a waste of time. Stop measuring it. You absolutely need line of sight. You have to connect the corporate strategy all the way down to the daily task of the truck driver or the machine operator.
And finally,
protect against gaming. Your metrics will be manipulated if you're not careful. Use guardrails, balance scorecards, and never let one single number determine a person's entire bonus. That just creates desperation, not excellence.
Solid advice. Now, we covered a lot, and this is a very visual topic. Seeing a KPI tree or an audit checklist really makes a difference.
There.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought. We talked about that queue at the door, and we talked about the perfect dashboard. So here's the question. Look at your own team's KPIs right now. If you hit every single target, every light turns green, every bonus is paid, would your company actually be successful, or would you just have a really nice-looking dashboard while the ship sinks?
That is the difference between measuring numbers and measuring what truly matters.
Something to think about. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.